Hello and welcome to the Indy Ball Report YouTube channel. Today we're going to go over the Lancaster Barnstormers and their outlook in 2019. Through the course of this video we're going to look over their 5-year results just to kind of give us a context of how the team's been in the recent past. Then we're going to grade each position and then give them an overall grade at each cluster: batting, pitching, and their managerial staff. Then we'll project their roster and lineup as well as give you a preseason watch list. Let's get started by looking at the 5-year results. Over the past 5 years, the Barnstormers have been blessed with success, reaching the playoffs 3 times, winning a championship in 2014, and only having one bad season in 2016 that they failed to reach 500. I expect this success to continue. Let's break down each position now. The catcher position is starved for offense, and they fail to have an option that provides both defense and offense. Despite Anderson De La Rosa returning, I expect Parker Moore and Brian Mayer to handle the majority of the catching duties. The team doesn't have a guy on this roster that's the happy medium between a solid defensive catcher and a solid offensive catcher. I believe Parker Moore is the best of the two, as his numbers support the fact he's been a good hitting catcher and an okay defensive catcher. With this, I think he can grow into a solid start in the Atlantic League this year, and I expect him to spend most of the year on the Barnstormers. But even with these expectations, I have to grade this position at a D+ for them. They just lack a reliable player at the catcher position for me to grade it a D+. There is no sure bet on this roster, and unless they can find a guy soon, I don't see this grade going up. At first base, the Barnstormers have good defense and adequate offense. Look for Casey Hobson to remain the starter. Hobson returns in 2019, a good defensive first baseman. He can definitely handle himself at the plate. I look for him to kind of improve before I can really improve the grade I gave them. However, I think Hobson's a serviceable guy, and I look for him to really be a solid player for them in 2019. Overall, I grade them a C, just due to the lack of versatility at this position. This can certainly improve over the course of the season, especially if they get some more versatility on this roster. Tyler Bortnick returns to second base in Lancaster. He will face a challenge from Melvin Mercedes, though. Both players are very good defensive guys that struggle at the plate. It's a toss-up who will start. I feel as though Bortnick has a bit of a leg up here, simply because he knows the system, and he knows the competition a bit better than Melvin Mercedes does, who begins his first stint in Lancaster this year. However, Mercedes could easily steal a starting gig if Bortnick begins to struggle. I give him a B- here because the defense really is that good. Third base is a bit of a black hole for the Barnstormers in 2019. With the lack of a dedicated third baseman, this will pose a problem defensively for them. I can only assume that one of Bortnick, Mercedes, or Dan Gamache will handle the hot corner. Gamache is one of those players that can provide meaningful offense without compromising on defense. I give them a D at this position solely because I don't feel as though Gamache is best utilized at third base. And if we are to assume that both Bortnick and Mercedes alternate at second base, then there really is no third baseman that's capable on this roster. I'd look for outside players to come in and really improve this position. However, if they do decide to run with Gamache, this bat will definitely be a welcome addition to this lineup. Shortstop doesn't hold many options for the Barnstormers this year. However, the options they do have are very good. Utility man Tyler Bortnick and former major leaguer Michael Martinez are the sole options on this roster. Martinez would likely win the job simply because his experience and abilities should be enough to win the day. Martinez has a lot of experience at the big league level, spending parts of 7 seasons with various major league clubs. For this reason, I feel as though he has to get the starting gig for opening day at shortstop. There really isn't a better place to put him at the moment, and frankly, shortstop is a bit of a hole for them. So Martinez fits in best here, and his bat should help the team out greatly. I rate them a C- just because I want to see Martinez used elsewhere in the infield. Also, if they do go with Bortnick, then you have to put Mercedes at second base, and I'm not sure if I want to start him at second base on a regular basis. I feel as though his bat's a bit too much of a liability. So by not putting Martinez at shortstop, you're handicapping your team somewhere else in the lineup. The outfield is definitely the strongest aspect for this Lancaster team. Darian Sanford returns and will likely reprise his role as the starting center fielder. With this comes solid defense and good batting. Zach Shank and Caleb Grandal will likely split starts, and Destin Hood will likely be the last permanent starter in the outfield. A very deep outfield that's strong on both sides of the ball should be the key to their success in 2019. Regardless of any of these contracts get purchased, I really like this outfield. I rated a B+ just because they don't have a real game breaker. However, given the 4 guys listed, I like any of them to start on any given day. They provide good offense to the team without compromising on defense. And in a league like the Atlantic League, that's very important. Now, let's look at the pitching staff for the Barnstormers. The Barnstormers lack starters. Only Major League veteran Kyle Davies and minor league lifers John Anderson and Jake McCaslin appear to be able to handle a dedicated starter's role. While there are others on the team that can start, the lack of rotation stability will hurt them in the long run. This lack of stability won't only affect the pitching staff, but also the infielders and outfielders. So the lack of stability will hurt the actual fielders as well as the pitching staff, which I'm sure I don't need to explain how much of a rhythm pitchers get into and how much of a routine they'll establish over the course of a season. The lack of this routine will definitely hurt the pitching staff. So unless they find 2 stars in their bullpen, they will remain at a C grade. The bullpen runs deep in Amish country. There is no weak link here, that is, until you get to the 8th inning. Guys like Granitz, Epley, Showman, Marksberry, and others will be lockdowns for the Barnstormers, as long as they remain in Lancaster. I expect a lot of these guys in this bullpen to have their contracts purchased throughout the season. That's why I rate them a B+, that and the lack of a setup man. The bullpen is definitely the strongest aspect on this Barnstormers team. There really is no shortage of guys that can handle 5th, 6th, 7th, or even 9th inning duties. Like I said, the setup man is a bit of a concern of mine. However, if the rest of your bullpen is strong, that should be good enough. Let's take a look at the Lancaster Barnstormers managerial staff for this year. Ross Peoples and his staff are strong but lack experience. This may be a critical fault of theirs come September. This is Peoples' 3rd year as manager of the Barnstormers, and he has his former player in Josh Bell as a hitting coach and a current player as his pitching coach. I'm a bit concerned about this simply because you have a lot of guys pulling double duty here, and the lack of experience could affect their postseason hopes come September. However, I'm not that big of a believer in experience. Skill is far more important, and Peoples and the people he hired are very skilled. I rate them a B+ here, so look for this grade to improve in 2020. Let's begin the all-ball section of the video. All-ball means the best players on this team. But there's also a caveat here. These are the best players that will likely be on the team come the end of the season. So these are the guys I expect to spend the whole 140-game season on the Barnstormers. So if you don't see your favorite player there, or you think I omitted somebody, it's probably because I believe they'll have their contract purchased by a major league team at some point during the year. With that out of the way, let's now begin to look at the list. We'll take a look at the first half of the list, which is the pitcher's half. Jake McCaslin, Buddy Balvin, Jonathan Abildeo, Cody Epley, Scott Schumann, and Garrett Granite are the main guys I expect to have a solid year and be on my all-star team. These are the best players on the team, and they mostly make up the bullpen, which is no surprise as that's the strongest aspect of the team. These guys will be able to eat a lot of innings and provide a lot of meaningful innings. Overall, these guys really deserve a shot at Major League Baseball, but for one reason or another, they probably won't get back or even get there. I look for these guys to be some of the cream of the crop this year for the Barnstormers. Now let's take a look at the batters. Catcher Parker Morin, Dan Gamache, an infielder, and Darian Sanford, our starting center fielder, are the only batters on this team that I feel are worthy of the all-ball title. All these guys are very good defensively. However, 2 of them really lack a solid bat, especially Morin, who really only has a career average of .230, and an on-base percentage career of .283 doesn't inspire terribly much confidence in his batting ability. However, Dan Gamache makes up for that, and I feel as though he's one of the better players in the league, but his main flaw is he just doesn't have a dedicated position. He's not terribly great anywhere, but he's not terrible anywhere either. That's why I really like him as a player. He's just the utility knife of everybody. Darian Sanford is an older guy, but he knows how to field his position very well and has the experience to back it up. Overall, these guys will probably be leaders on this team in 2019. So we're going to take a look at the projected lineup now, and then we're going to go over the clusters I talked about in the beginning of the video. Let's look over my projected lineup for the Barnstormers in 2019. I tried to go ahead and get a solid mix of both defensive players and offensive players here, and that's evident with my first pick, the catcher Parker Moran. His offense is lacking, only a .230 lifetime hitter. However, his defense is very good, and I feel as though when you fill out a lineup card, you need to have those solid defensive guys. And given the lack of offense at the catcher position for the Barnstormers, Moran seemed like the best choice, as he knows how to be a solid backstop and knows how to call a game. While calling a game is a skill that's going to be outdated in the Atlantic League given the rule changes, I feel as though it's still important, especially in the beginning part of the year. Hence, Moran gets my starting catcher nod. At first base, should be no surprise. It's Casey Hobson. He's the best first baseman on this roster, and he knows how to hit and he knows how to field his position. I expect for him to hold this position for as long as he's on the team. At second base, this is the first real hard decision we've had to make. While Tyler Bortnick is going to be my guy, I could easily see this going to Melvin Mercedes. Both of them are very solid players here, and frankly, neither one is a great bat. I can even see Dan Gamache stealing the spot, however, I have him penciled in elsewhere. I feel confident enough in Bortnick's abilities to field his position, and I can get comfortable enough with his hitting abilities. Alright, let's head over to third base now. At the hot corner, Dan Gamache is my guy to take that position. Although he's not the best fielder right there, I feel as though he provides the most offense. And so far in this team, there isn't much offense. So Gamache needs to get in there, and considering he's probably the best equipped to handle third base, it seems like a natural fit there. However, I'd really like to see them go after, say, Conrad Gregor of the New Jersey Jackals in the Can-Am League to help fill that position. At shortstop, again, this is not that surprising. Michael Martinez is my guy. He's a former major leaguer, and I feel as though he just has the experience and the ability that's a bit above everybody else on the roster to take the starting gig, at least to start the season. Now in the outfield, once again, this was a bit difficult, as there really is a couple of guys here that I could see taking spots. However, I decided to go with Caleb Grendel, Darian Sanford, and my shocker here is Zach Schenk getting a starting nod. While Dustin Hood I discussed and I predicted he would get a starter spot, upon further reflection, I feel as though Schenk really earns that spot a bit more. This is where the bulk of the offense is going to come from, and seeing as they're all very good defenders, I feel as though this is the best possible lineup to mix both offense and defense together to create a cohesive unit. So with the lineup out of the way, let's take a look at our grades and our predictions. An overall grade for batters on this team is simply a C. It's the definition of mediocre and average. There really is no batter on this team that makes me get up and shout. There is no fielder that makes me do the same either. It really is just pretty average. While nobody's going to make a glaring mistake, nobody's going to make the outstanding play either. And that's why they get a C here. They are the definition of average. As a pitcher spot, it's a B-. The pitching staff is very good in the bullpen aspect. The starters drag this grade down heavily, as they really only have 3 guys that can handle the role. If they were able to even get a 4th guy in there, I feel a lot more comfortable in giving them a B. However, they earn the minus just because that rotation really does scare me, especially down the stretch. They're an injury away from really having a major problem. However, the bullpen should be able to bail them out. The staff grade is going to be a B here. As we discussed earlier, experience is a bit of a concern. However, once again, I feel as though skill matters a lot more than experience, as the most talented players and the most talented managers will figure out what the best thing to do is. So much so that experience will become irrelevant. So now we get to my overall grade for the team. The team was graded on the 20/80 scale that's traditionally used for grading baseball players. I graded the team at 58. This is a pretty average score for a pretty average team. No game breaker, no solid rotation, and no huge bat. However, they are good defensively, and their offense should be able to patch any holes in the ship, as well as their bullpen doing the same for their rotation. I expect them to finish with, roughly speaking, 72 wins. A 72-68 record will be par for the course for this team, and frankly is an achievable goal here in 2019. This will put them in a dead heat for the second place spot in the Freedom Division. So that concludes our 2019 Lancaster Barnstormers preview. If you enjoyed the video, please like it. And if you enjoy our content, please subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to see more of our stuff, head to our website. It's linked in the description below, as well as our social media pages. Until we meet again, don't forget to play ball.